Today we're reviewing the Hahnemuhle paper. What's up friends, thank you for joining me in another video. Today we'll be looking at this lovely paper I picked up at a local art store, Hahnemuhle. Let's go over some of the things on the package. This one cost 93 shekels. All you have to do is divide it by 3.65 to get the dollars. I'm not gonna calculate it now, but anyway, it says it's acid free and it's 130 pound. It's Torchon. I guess it has this sort of a texture to it. From what I saw online, I actually checked. I'm not sure if it's Hahnemuhle or Hahnemuhle, so I'm not sure. Sorry about pronouncing it wrong. Anyway, let's change the angle and take a look at this paper. So friends, let's examine the packaging. As I mentioned, I got this at a local art store here in Israel, in Tel Aviv. 93.3 shekels. I calculated it's $25 US dollars approximately. And this is actually one of the more expensive papers I could find in the art store. Let's see if I can open this thing up here. I don't really like the variety of paper that we get here in Israel, so I do, as I mentioned, end up just ordering everything off of Amazon or rarely off of eBay. Okay, so I got through the packaging. And Hahnemuhle Fine Art, I did take a quick look at their website. They look like a pretty serious company. Okay, got off the plastic wrap. Watercolor block, acid free, bright white, rough surface, the Torchon, I don't know how to pronounce that. 130 pounds. It has 20 sheets. It's 6.7 on 9.4 inches. Let's just open it up and see what it looks like. Wow. So this one has a really strong texture. I really had no idea what it's gonna be like. So very interesting. I can see there's here there's like all the gum around it, and then you have here this little corner for cutting the sheets. So I think the best thing really to do now is to just give it a test run and just try to paint on it and see what it feels like. So I think what I'll do, I won't leave the paper in the block because I just don't trust it enough, and I'm afraid all the paint will bleed to the next sheet and it will be a shame. So what I will do is just prepare everything, cut it out, put it on my board, and we'll give it a test. So I took out a single sheet and it doesn't feel too flimsy, I have to say, compared to the old Cotman paper I used in the past. This one feels a little thicker. What's really interesting is the texture itself, because you can see it's like really long, like valleys and mountains. This is what I see when I look at it, okay? This is what I see. Anyway, let me tape this, prepare some stuff, and let's get to painting. So friends, we are all set. I have the paper taped, and what I'm gonna do is use the lovely Carbazole Violet that surprised me a lot because it's just so much better than I thought and so much more versatile. And what I will do, and the reason I love it is because it has such a wide variety of values. So what I'm gonna do now is test this paper out with the Carbazole Violet, and the fact that we have a wide variety of values will only help this testing. So I think I'll start by just trying to apply a flat wash that will just look good as a flat wash and see how the paper handles it. It doesn't feel, as I mentioned, I'm gonna take the ring and move it to the other hand because it sometimes interrupts me. So as I mentioned, I don't feel this is as flimsy as the old Cotman paper I was using in the past, but it definitely feels thinner than the thicker paper I'm using so far. So I think what I'll do is just create a flat wash here, and I don't know why I deliberately slow down my voice and my speaking for no apparent reason. So I'm just gonna apply this paint here. And the first thing I feel is that the brush really slides on the paper much more than in my harsh cold press paper. So it says rough, but it's definitely not that rough. That's the first thing I can say. I will give it a shot with some dry brush strokes later on to see if we can really take advantage of that surface. But I don't know, for now it looks pretty smooth to me. Later on also, when we try blending and maybe even lifting, it will give us a really good indication of how smooth the surface is. Let's add at the very bottom a bit of the quinacridone burnt orange from that same Daniel Smith secondary set that I talk about so much and that I love so much. So just adding a bit of that orange here and creating whatever color will come out of it. Add a bit of water. Definitely not keeping the purity of the orange here. So anyway, this is nice, it's interesting. You can see when I press a bit on the brush, you do get some of the surface, so that's nice. We will test it further in a moment. What I think I want to do now is maybe grab some more of the orange here. By the way, take a look, buckled, buckle, buckle, buckle. You see that? It buckled easily, but that's okay because it's really thinner than the usual paper I'm using. So I'm just gonna put this a bit of a stronger wash, and what I want to try with this one is to sort of blend the edges. So I'm cleaning my brush, water, I'm drying it on the towel, and I'm just trying to blend the edges. Let's try to leave a bit of water in it, just help the paint move a bit along the paper, and then clean it completely and almost dry and just sort of blend the edges. So I can see that blending works quite nicely with this one. Now I'm gonna clean my brush a bit, have some more water, and try and blend the edge a bit. Okay, clean it up, dry it a bit more, blend the edge. So you see it works pretty nicely. I like that. Now I'm gonna just wet my brush a bit, or maybe leave it a little damp here. Sort of try to let these two blend together here. Dry the brush a bit, sort of dry it. So I see that when I come with a dry brush, it sort of really makes a harsh line. Here maybe a bit as well, you can see this. You kind of need to come with water first and then only allow it to be completely dry. So let's try that again, but this time I'll do a better job at it. So just a bit of yellow on the left, a little bit of violet here, and just let them mix like this. So you see the orange is a bit more wet, so it flows more easily into the violet. So anyway, this is, I think, enough for that test. Looks pretty good. The only thing that bothers me really is how much the paper is lifted off. So I think maybe this will be suited for uses that are a little more like a sketchbook. So perhaps just get everything in one wash, maybe. Just create a quick sketch and then go over the sketch with paint and get the correct value immediately. Don't play around with it, don't layer it too much, don't glaze too much, just get it in there. So I'm gonna try one thing here. I wanna try and glaze on top of that layer, or maybe even better, we'll glaze with orange on top of the violet layer here. And I wanna do this because it's really interesting to see if existing paint will lift, okay? It really depends on the type of paper when you do such a thing. So I'm just placing it over, and it doesn't feel like this layer is lifting anything off. It just glazes over it quite nicely. So that's interesting. I would expect it to maybe lift a bit, but it doesn't. I am very pleased with it. Let's try now, before we do the wet and wet, let's try to blur or sort of lift some of the paint. So we can try lifting here. I'm gonna wet this surface a bit. Oh, that was easier than expected. I'm gonna dry my brush and come back and just get it. So you can see it's very liftable. I'm gonna try and lift with a dry brush. And this paint is dry already, but it still kind of lifts, you see? So that's interesting. I will try to do the same just to get more of a blurry edge here. So it's nice. You can see it blurs a bit. Not necessarily the cleanest edge. What you mostly find in these cases is that you have this strong line of change. Close the window, sorry about that noise. So you find that you have a very strong line of change and a bit of a darker here and lighter there. So it's good, it's not that bad. It blurs nicely. The last thing I want to try is just do some wet and wet. So I will wet the paper a bit. Not too much because it does buckle rather easily. I'm gonna wet the paper a bit and just start dabbing it in there. Ooh, that's nice flow actually. It's really nice. Wow, beautiful. I never know if it's like due to the pigment or the paper. I do see different results in different types of paper with this kind of wet and wet approach, but it's always tricky for me. Let's try putting a bit more. Interesting. I like that. So I think this paper is going to be really great for some things and not as good for others, but I think that's like really to be expected, you know? Nothing wrong about it. It's completely acceptable. That's the word I was looking for. Really nice. You know, there's one thing we still haven't really tested out, which is dry brush. So I'm just gonna put tons of the violet here and just try to make some quick strokes like this. And you can see how the surface of the paper slowly is discovered. If I go with the side of the brush also, you can see there is some texture to take advantage of here. So really nice overall. It's just interesting to see how it will fare when actually doing like a whole scene with it, which I will do because I almost ran out of paper and I didn't order any new paper because I'm flying to Paris, and like I will give this a lot of tries and test it out, and we'll of course keep you updated. The one thing worrying me is the buckling, but I think it won't be that bad. I'll just tape it really darn well to the board. So let's wrap up this video review. Friends, I hope you enjoyed this review. Honestly, I'm pleasantly surprised by this paper. I wasn't expecting a lot because where did I put the rest of the block? Found it. Anyway, I was pleasantly surprised by it because I wasn't expecting much, and honestly, I sometimes look down on some of the supplies we get here in Israel. But it's not that cheap of a paper, you know. I did like $25. It's getting close to some of the arsh that I saw out there. Now, it's added with the import taxes and things like this, so it'll probably go for like 15, 18, I don't know. I need to do the research on Amazon or something like that. But I am pleasantly surprised with it. I think that maybe in the future I'll get the thicker version, so maybe the heavier, version. The texture is really interesting. I will say that I haven't seen it on any other paper. That handled the paint really nicely. Has some interesting characteristics, more of hot pressed paper and less of cold pressed, I guess. Which is nice, you know. I'm a big fan of cold pressed, but lately I've been getting back to hot pressed, and this is like, it's supposed to be rough, but it's really like a hot pressed in the best sense possible. So if you can get it cheaper, because there's less, I guess, taxes, I would recommend just giving it a shot, trying and see if you like the texture. Maybe get the thicker version though. It could be interesting to see how it handles the paint like in the long run, like a painting that dries. Sorry, so I may do that in the future, like create a painting and see how maybe it changes over time. Now, there's of course a lot of different variables, but I don't know, it's just interesting to see. So this is it. I hope you enjoyed this review. I will check on Amazon if I do find a purchase link, if I do find this exact product or a similar one, I will link it in the description box below. So if it interests you and if you can get it for cheaper than I did, it may be really worth it. So I'd give it a shot, and it could be that it's like a really high quality paper and I had no idea and it's like really considered expensive. I don't know, but I really liked it. So this is it. I hope you enjoyed this review and I will see you again in another video tomorrow.